Leslie, and welcome back to another episode of the Why Not Today podcast. And I'm super excited you're here. And today I want to talk about something that we don't talk about enough. And it's the things that we know how to do it, we know what to do, but we just don't do it. Has anybody else been in that position? Um, I was privileged and honored to speak for a Million Cups group in Loudoun County yesterday. And in preparing it and talk about systems and action, it came up a lot that we know what to do, but there's a lot of things stopping us. Is it creative avoidance? Is it distraction? Is it fear? And if you know me or you listen to this podcast or watched it, you know I'm all about action. So we're going to talk about that today. And we're going to talk about you know what to do, you're not doing it. So, have you ever felt like you know exactly what to do, but you're just not doing it? You have the list, you have the ideas, you have the experience, and yet you're still stuck. I hear this all the time, and that's a conversation that keeps coming up, honestly, that we've all lived it, that we know what to do. It's just we're not doing it. So, today we're going to talk about how that happens and more importantly, how to get out of it. So I've had many times in my business that I had the plan, I know what to do, I've done it before, but instead of doing the one thing that mattered, I found myself doing everything else. The reorganizing, the planning, the thinking, the talking about it, but not actually moving forward. Can anybody relate to that? Um, so let me ask you this. What are you avoiding? What did you do instead? And how did you get how did you get unstuck when you were in that situation? So as I said, I presented for Million Cups and I was working on the presentation, and then I got a little distracted. And I started working on like a handout to give out. And I'm putting together my business cards, which is a sticker and all the things, and yet the presentation wasn't quite ready. So I had to ask myself, what am I avoiding? And it was like, I'm really good at starting, but not so good at finishing. I don't know if anybody else relates. So why does this happen? It's not because we're lazy. It's not because we're motivated at all. And it's definitely not because we don't know enough. Most women I talk to and people in business, we do know it, or we can usually find it very quickly. But one, it's overwhelmed. So you're not stuck because you have nothing to do. Kind of the opposite. We're stuck because we have too much to do. And sometimes we have too many ideas, too many options, too many shoulds. And when everything feels important, nothing gets done. And sometimes we need to break those down into smaller steps. So if you have a big project you have to do, then how can you break it down to smaller steps and like, okay, get that done and then get that done and then get that done. I've been trying to do that more. If you followed any of my recent podcast episodes, if you're watching right now, I've got index cards all over the place. And so it helps me stay on track and break down a project. So I just, one of the things I'm doing now is teaching a monthly workshop, a free workshop. And so I went through and created an index card with all the steps. And so instead of the overwhelming, like, oh my goodness, how do I do all these things? It's just one step at a time. And so that definitely helps to break it down. And sometimes we just have too many ideas and you need to write them down also. And it's funny, I connected with several people on Facebook recently, and I guess I'm in a pool of suggestion, and maybe it's a God nudge that people I've been connecting with are all in a writer circle, and they're all writers. And so I've had two people recently ask me if I was a writer. I'm like, no, but it's definitely on my list. So maybe it's a nudge to get it done sooner, that I do want to write a book, but it's on a list for later. And, I know the topic, I know the idea, but I need to write it down and put it in my later list because you can't do everything at once. And then the other thing that kind of can get us stopped from doing things is no clear one thing. We want clarity, but we keep everything open. So it's being able to say, okay, that's not important this week. Let me do it last week or next week and decide what matters most this week. So this week has been kind of a busy week. I presented at Million Cups yesterday. And so I had to get ready for that. Now, I thought I was doing really well. Did a lot of it on Sunday. And I was called out by Erin, who runs the event. She goes, that's procrastinating. I'm like, no, for me, getting it done Sunday is really good if it's a Wednesday event. And then today we had the Why Not Today Connects luncheon. So as soon as a million cups was over, I had to finish putting the details together for the luncheon. So I have to look at, okay, what's the next thing? Tomorrow, it's going to be following up with all the new contacts. And so I think we need to have clarity what we're doing and also clarity on what's the best next step. Like making sure you're carving time. Like I had a busy week in front of a lot of people. I think there were 30 or 40 people at Million Cups, and at the luncheon there was 24, 25 with me. And so that's a lot of people I need to follow up with. So I've carved out tomorrow to do that. So that's a good strategy for that. And then one of my favorites is creative avoidance, and that's the sneaky one. We can be really productive sometimes doing the wrong things. Have you ever caught yourself all of a sudden you have to clean the kitchen, you have to organize, you have to make your desk pretty, you have to do the research, you have to scroll, see if somebody else has a wonderful idea. We are willing to help everybody else. The phone rings like, oh, I can help you, because it's creative avoidance. And a lot of times what that really means is fear. Last week I was at the beach and was walking with a new friend, and she was really kind of coaching me and asking me questions and asking me what I believed in and what my business was like and what was the one thing that I needed to do, but I wasn't doing it. And I found myself kind of in that creative avoidance, like not talking to enough people about promoting the podcast or my Why Not Today Inner Circle or the VIP action session. And I know both of those are blessings to people. So why do we stop ourselves from sharing? And it's fear. And so being able to, recognize those things. And I shared something today on the luncheon is when you know better, you do better. So that is now in the back of my mind. And I'm thinking, oh, do I really need to do this? There's just a little creative avoidance. And then lack of accountability. Oh my goodness, that's a big one. The best part about owning your own business is if you don't have a boss. And the worst part about owning your own business is you don't have a boss. Nobody's looking at it, looking to see what you've done. If you procrastinate all day or move papers around, or if you really made income producing activities. For me, I left corporate America over 26 years ago. And, I can procrastinate like the best of everybody and not do the most effective thing. But when it comes down to it, I got to do the work that makes the money, because the thought of going back to corporate America makes me want to work and get it done and open up my mouth. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a Why Not Today Inner Circle. And we meet weekly, and there's so many times that women in the group say they know what to do, but they didn't do it this week. We put it on our action sheet, but then we leave it in our computer. And it's not that we're not capable, it's we're busy. We're helping others. We're doing all the things. If you're mothers, if you have running a household, I'm a daughter with a mom that I've been at the hospital or the emergency room and the doctor twice this week. And so those take time. And, what really thinking like, what is one thing that can move you forward this week? And that's something we talk about in the inner circle. And then we celebrate once we've gotten those things done. And so not a million things, not 10 million things, but what's one thing? And sometimes for me, I've got to get the distractions off my desk, away from me, so I don't see them. And so I can stay focused on the one thing. So what are those things you're putting off? And, get excited when you accomplish it and celebrate those things. And I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, I had a stack of business cards sitting on my desk to follow up with people. And I just took 10 minutes and got through it. A voicemail, I needed to change my voicemail. And I always say it took me a year and 3 minutes. It took me a year to think about it and 3 minutes to do it. And so sometimes we just need to do the thing. And why not today? I keep asking that. But when you do, you start getting momentum, you get the energy, you get confidence. I was talking to a new inner circle member yesterday, and she was talking about that when she first started her business, it was booming. It was lots of referrals, word of mouth, and then it kind of slowed down. And when it slowed down, then she lost her confidence and wasn't as confident to reach out and call people. So I told her to think about it the other way. Like, how can you be a blessing to those people? And you never know when it's going to come from. And then the other thing that I want to talk to you about that I heard the other day is talking about humility. And humility, somebody had a definition, it was just really spoke to me. And it's knowing that we don't know it all and be willing to ask, because sometimes it's not just that we know it, but when we're not doing, but sometimes we just don't know. I realized when I started my new business that there was a lot of things I didn't know and I didn't know. I have been coaching a friend to start an LLC, and there's things that she doesn't know. She received an email last night, which was a spam, but she was smart enough to ask, do I need to do this? And reach out to me. So part of humility is knowing that, okay, I don't know it all and I got to reach out and ask somebody. There's lots of resources to figure it out, but sometimes you just need to reach out and ask somebody. And as I said, that's what I had to do when I started the Why Not Today business, because I found out there was a lot of things I didn't know. Starting a podcast, there's a lot of things I didn't know. So I had to reach out and ask people. So think about, what are the things that you know, but you're not doing? And what are the things you don't know that you might need to know that you can reach out and help somebody? So start thinking about those. And then calendar these items. What are the things you need to do and when are you going to do them? Just like I said, I had an event Wednesday, I had an event today, and which is Thursday when I'm recording this, and Friday I'm going to be working on follow-up. So I've carved time in my calendar. And somebody actually just reached out to me to get together tomorrow, and I almost said yes, but I'm like, no, I need to follow up. So otherwise it's wasted time. We're so good at checking our email and staying on top of things. I'm curious that I'll check it, but I don't respond to it. So being able to act on things when you do. So think about, what do you know that you're not doing, and what do you maybe need to know next? I mean, you're not alone. We're here together. And this episode is really about awareness. And then when you have the awareness and you start taking the action little by little, and consistency is key. We're going to talk about that more later, but that starts to build momentum, and you start to get the tire rolling down the hill, the momentum, and it starts slowly. And then the consistency pays off. Like, I started this podcast 4 years ago, and never in a million years, when I started Scared 4 years ago, did I think I'd be sitting here with 4 years of episodes, which is crazy. And so if you're interested in all the things I have going on, the free workshop in April, or the Why Not Today Inner Circle, or the VIP action session, it's all on my website or the workshop's not. We need to add that. That's a thing that I need to do. But I'll check out everything about Why Not Today at whynotTodayMovement.com. And you know what? If this spoke to you, share with a friend. Tell somebody. Be accountable. Let me know. At the Million Cups event yesterday, I asked several people that shared that they were there. They had an action. I'm like, let me know when you got it done, and why not today? So I hope you enjoyed this solo episode of the Why Not Today podcast. And I am here to support you however you need it, and always reach out. And as I said, share the episode with a friend that you think might need it, and review it, please, or go to my Google and review it. I really, really appreciate it. And, it takes all of us working together, and we're not alone, to make amazing things happen. So who's ready for some momentum? You got to start now. All right. Thanks for listening. And as I always close, why not today?